Hi guys, you're welcome to part 2 of how to make the perfect mini skirt. As you can see guys, there are two separate pictures showing. It's just cause I lost the original recording of the first one and so I had to remake it. So to start the sewing of the mini skirt, we're going to need to trace out our darts. For that you need a board and a tracing wheel. I'm just tracing out the darts now with my tracing wheel. You need a wooden board guys so that it can show on the fabric. That's me showing you guys the imprint from the tracing wheel. So now I'm making a little notch. A notch is like a small cut on the hip line so that when I want to join the pieces together, I will know where each piece starts from. I will know where the hip line is, and I can just pin it from there. So now I'm ruling out my darts. That's me ruling out the darts after tracing it out from the tracing wheel. Then I'm proceeding, I'm taking out the pins from the pattern paper. The next thing you want to do is you want to pin those darts together. You want to pin those darts so that it will be easy for you to sew. So I'm just pinning, making sure that the pin touches one point of the dart to the other point of the dart, just like that. Pin it and pinning it all the way up. Pinning the other side the same way I did the first side. Pin all the way up. Because if you're a beginner, you want to take your time to pin this so that you get that pinned exactly. So when you're sewing, your lines will be straight. So now I'm taking to my sewing machine and I'm sewing. Removing the pins please remove the pin as you sew along so that you don't damage your needle by sewing on top of the pins. Then I'm proceeding to sew the second part. Guys, remember this part we're working on is the front pattern, and that's why you see it's one whole piece. It's not two pieces. That's what I meant by unfold. When you open it, it becomes a whole piece without any joining or it becomes one whole piece. So that's completely sewn. So now on to the back pattern. It's just exactly like the front. With my tracing wheel again, I'm tracing out the darts. Again, making a notch on the hip line so that it will be easy for me to identify where the hip is when I want to join the two pieces together. Making a notch on the side of the skirt and then the center of the back on the hip line. Just a notch is a small cut, a very tiny cut. So I'm ruling out the dart lines. Just remember to show, in case you do not have a tracing wheel, this is another way for you to be able to get your darts. Just put a pin on the 3 points, the beginning of the first leg, the beginning of the second leg, and then the point where the dart ends. Mark it. We're showing at the back of the fabric. You mark it on the back, mark it on the back. Then where that pin is, remove your pattern paper. Mark it, find where it's showing at the back and mark it. That's for if you don't have a tracing wheel, but I advise you get a tracing wheel. But if you don't have, this is another way for you to trace out your dart legs accurately. So I'm just taking out my pins, just exactly the way we did the front. Pinning the darts. As you can see guys, this is two pieces, which was what I was explaining about cutting the back in two. That's because the back will have a zip, and so you need a space for that. So now I'm sewing down my darts for the back. And I'm sewing down the second dart on the back. So next thing you want to do, the right sides facing each other, not the wrong side. What I mean by the right side is the front of the fabric. facing each other. This side you're holding the center back, not the side of the skirt, not the side, guys, the center. I'm pinning that notch I made together, and then I'm pinning all the way up and then pinning all the way down. That's why I always make that notch, so that I know where the hip starts from, and I secure that first before I pin upward and then pin downwards. Then now I'll make a line on that notch that I made, so I know where my hip starts from. And from there I start measuring my 1 inch allowance that I put when I was cutting it. Mark that all the way down, and then mark that all the way up. 1 inch allowance that we put before. So this is me just ruling it out. I had to change chalk because the white chalk wasn't showing. When you want to start sewing, please guys, use a loose stitch that you can easily remove. And then when you don't sew all the way to the hip line, measure 1 inch before that hip line, mark that point. Then now you can double stitch, tighten that part because that's where the zip will stop, and then you can sew with a tight stitch all the way to the bottom. There's I'm removing the pins, showing you what it looks like. And then now you want to join the front and the back piece together on the sides. Again, I'm looking for that hip notch, pinning it from there. That's why I like to make the notch, so that I can know where to start pinning from, and then pin all the way down. That way you get equal length and your hips start from exactly the same point. Just like the way we did in the zip allowance, I'm marking again the hip line so that I can mark 1 inch, my 1 inch allowance all the way to the top, and then all the way to the bottom. And then I'm rolling it all together to mark out the line I'm going to be sewing on. Take it to my sewing machine. This time you use a tight stitch, guys, because this is the side of the skirt, so you can use a very tight stitch on this part. Moving the pins, I'm going to do it on the other side. Exactly what I did on that side, I'm going to do on this side. Securing the notch of the hip again, securing all the way down, and then securing all the way up. Then I'm going to be marking out my allowance 1 inch. The 1 inch allowance I put on the side. Rolling it straight so I can know the line I'm sewing on. And then take it to my machine with a tight stitch, guys, please. Sewing it all the way. Taking out the pins, and I'm just going to flip it over, and then I'm showing you guys what the front and the back looks like when it's joined together. Now to my pressing iron. Time for the waistband. The waistband, remember we cut 2 pieces of it. I'm going to be keeping one of it aside, and then on the other one we're going to be attaching a fusible interface or an hairstay. I'm showing you guys what it looks like now. It's a fabric that has a glue or a gum on one side that can attach to your fabric with a hot pressing iron. You can get it at your local tailoring store. So I'm just using my iron to iron it onto the wrong side of the waistband. One of it, the wrong side, not the right side of the fabric. And when you iron it, it will attach to the cloth. So now I'm trimming away all the excesses all around the band. Then pressing it more with my iron just to secure. You can see it has secured onto my waistband. Remember, the wrong side, not the right side. I'm just ironing out the wrinkle from the second one. I'm not attaching any interface to it. Now I'm ironing out my skirt just to straighten it before I continue my sewing. Now it's time to attach the waistband. The back part of the skirt, where the allowance for the zip is, you're going to lose 1 inch out of it. That's why I said don't use a tight stitch, so it will be easy for you to lose just 1 inch. Now you're going to be attaching one of the waistband, not the one with the fusible interface, the plain one. Attaching right sides together. You're pinning this waistband all the way around the waist. Please, right sides together. What that means is the front of the waistband and the front of the skirt. The right side, not the wrong side. Pinning it all the way around. just secure with a pin all the way around. Right side, please guys, not the wrong side, the right side. So now you're going to measure the 1/2 inch allowance that we put when we're cutting for on our waist. Measure it all the way around. That's what we're going to be sewing on, that 1/2 inch allowance. 1/2 inch, just like that. Roll all the way down. We'll take it out, same machine, and you're going to sew on that 1/2 inch mark. Please guys, try to use a tight stitch on this. I'll try to let you guys know as much along the line where you should use a tight stitch and where you should use a loose stitch. So on this, you're using a very tight stitch because that's where the waist is. So I'm just sewing that all around. Taking out the pins. Please always take out your pins, please. Whenever you're done sewing that part, always take out your pins. So I'm just showing you guys what it looks like now that the waistband, the first waistband, has been attached. So now I'm flipping it over, closing up that zip allowance where I loosed initially. Please still use a loose stitch here. When you get to where the other line starts, please don't tight stitch it because it's only temporary and you're still going to remove it. So I'm just marking out the exact same 1 inch that is on that allowance, connecting it to the initial line and joining it back together. Please don't tighten it at the ending. Like I said, you're still going to take it out. And don't tight stitch at the beginning either. Now it's time to attach the zip. I always advise to please use a long zip, it's better. So now to secure the zip, that part where you tighten the 1 inch before the notch on the hip line, you're not going to put the end of the zip exactly there. You're going to take it at least 1 inch lower. You can now measure the zip length from the notch on the hip line and then check where it stops at the beginning of the waistband. Just mark that out. Please guys, remember, from the hip line, not that notch, not 1 inch before the hip line, that notch on the hip line and all the way up, and then mark it out. So taking one side of the zip onto one side of the join at the back, please remember where you marked it from. That's where the line you marked it, the point you marked it from will start at the edge of the waistband. Please make sure the teeth of the zip is touching the line as close as possible to the joining, and then please use a loose stitch when you are attaching this. Use a loose stitch when you're attaching this. Sew it all the way as close as your machine can get. I'm going to be zipping this up and then flip to the other side. The same way you did that part, you're going to be doing this part. Taking all the rest of the fabric to one side and then bringing out the other allowance from the other side. Please, when you're sewing your zip, make sure the zip is lying down flat as possible with the teeth on the seam line, and then sew all the way to the top. Please always take the rest of the fabric to the other side because you're only sewing this onto the allowance. So now this is what I meant when I said you shouldn't use a tight stitch in the back. From that 1 inch line on before the notch on the hip, remember that 1 inch line I told you to secure, double secure. You're going to lose from that part all the way to the top because our stitch there is not tight. Remember I said don't use a tight stitch because you're going to be taking it out later. So that's what I'm doing. I'm taking it out later. Guys, please, if you don't understand this zip part and you want to see a detailed and up close video of how to install your zip, please let me know in the comment section and I'll be happy to do a video of how to install your zip, a very detailed video of how to install your zip. So now I'm opening up the zip after taking out that same line I told you about. So now it's time to actually secure our zip. please, sewing as close, what I like to do is put the bigger part of the teeth on, bigger part of my sewing machine on top of the teeth, so that my needle is as close as it can get to the teeth. Please don't sew on top of the teeth so you don't break your needle. Try to sew as close as you can, then secure the zip all the way to the down. You may not be able to get to the down because of the zip head, so just stop as close as you can. We're going to still finish up that line. On to the next part. You have to flip it all the way up to the other side, so that the bigger head of your sewing machine can be on top of the zip teeth, just like that. Sew it all the way to the top. Please guys, again, if you still don't understand or you can't see clearly what I'm doing and you want a up close video of how to install your zip, please just let me know in the comment section. I'll be willing to do that. So remember when I said your machine may not be able to climb because of the zip head. So now that you've taken all the zip all the way to the top, I'm just completing that line. Because whenever you want to do this part, always remember to take the rest of the fabric to one side before you sew the zip on that side. Then when you're doing the other side, take the rest of the fabric to the other side, so it's not in the way when you're sewing the zip on the other side. Please, I'm saying a lot of things and it may not be easy for you to understand if you're a beginner. So if you need a detailed video of how to install your zip, I'll be willing to do that, please. So I'm just opening to show you the zip completed. So now what you want to do is trim off the excess. Please guys, after trimming off the excess, don't try to close up the zip, because there's nothing going to stop it. It's going to come out and ruin all the work you've done. So please don't zip after cutting. So now I'm attaching my second waistband, the one with the fusible interface, pinning from the beginning of the top of the waistband. Now no longer the waist, the waistband on top of the waistband. I'm pinning all the way around. Just joining the two waistbands together. Right size, please guys, always right size. Now I'm marking out my allowance, which is 1/2 inch all the way around. Take it into my sewing machine and just sew that 1/2 inch all the way around. Please guys, when you are sewing, don't be careful when you want to climb on top of that zip, because now there's a zip on the waistband. Be careful so you don't break your needle. Cross that part slowly and then sew all the way to the other side. Please again remember, when you're sewing, when you get to where the zip is, carefully please. Don't rush when you're sewing over the zip so you don't break your needle. So now I'm taking out the pins. Please always remember to take out your pins. Now it's time to top stitch. What top stitch means? Where those two waistbands meet, taking all the excess to the side with the infusible interface, you're going to sew as close as you can to that same line, so that when we close up the waistband, it will sit perfectly. That's what top stitching means. Taking the excess allowance to one side and then sewing on top of it. Please guys, just do it exactly the way I did it. So now I'm showing you what it looks like when you finish top stitching. So that my fusible part, I don't want to leave the edge rough like that, so I'm folding it twice. Please guys, the double fold should not be more than 1/2 inch altogether, 1/2 inch, because that's the allowance we have on the waistband, on each of the waistband. Very tiny. It's just so it's not looking rough. If you have a bias at this point, it's okay to put a bias, but I prefer to just fold my waistband, just double, a tiny altogether 1/2 inch. So I'm sewing that all the way down. You can see what it looks like. So now you're going to flip that part to cover the zip, not in front. Right sides facing each other again. You're flipping it backward. when I'm doing the other side, I'm going to explain what I mean, guys. Please just pay attention when I'm doing it. You're going to sew this down just to secure. We're covering up the zip. That's what I'm doing, covering up the zip. Then trim out the excess from the top so there's no bulge when you flip it over. This is what I'm trying to show you guys. See, so your zip sits perfectly and it's hidden. So this is what I'm doing again. This front side, you can see, do you see what I did? Not flip it over to cover the zip. That's right side of the waistband, covering the right side of the waistband, and then sew it down. That's going to hide your zip. So trim out the excess at the top so the zip can sit perfect and there's no bulge. So now what we want to do is secure that waistband. You cannot leave it flapping like that. So I'm going to turn it to the front. Make sure my waistband is sitting perfectly and straight, and then pin from the front. Please don't do this from the back, do this from the front so you can be seeing the waistband lying down flat. Then you pin it down. Pin it down from one end of the waistband to the other side. Now you're going to take it to your machine. That's seam, yes. You're going to make this seam you're going to make it on top should hide inside that seam. It should not be on top of the waistband, guys. Please, it should sit right on that seam. Yes, just right like that. On that, just the way I'm doing it, not on top of the waist. Please, this seam you're making should not show. It shouldn't be visible because it's supposed to be hiding inside that notch. Not a notch, I'm sorry, inside that join. That's where it should be hiding. It shouldn't be visible. Guys, you cannot sew on top of the zip. So before you just stop at least half an inch before the zip ending and just secure it there. So now we're done doing that. Please, guys, remember the seam should not be visible. It should be hiding inside that seam line. It should be hiding inside that line. So now I'm just zipping up to show you what it looks like. This is what it looks like on the inside. It should only be visible there. It shouldn't be visible from the front. So now I want to close up the down and then our skirt will be complete. So for the down, I'm marking out the 1 inch allowance that I put. Marking it all the way around. Your 1 inch allowance. Please remember, guys, 1 inch allowance that we put at the bottom when we're cutting it. Marking it out on the front and on the back, all the way around at the bottom of the skirt, please. After marking it, I'm going to connect all those lines so that I know where I'm stopping when I want to sew it. Please, I always like to show my lines on my clothes. It makes it easier when you're sewing. And it's tailoring chalk, so it can easily clean off. So now I'm double folding. What I'm doing is I'm double folding it so I can sew it. I'm showing again. When your first fold should touch that 1 inch line, and then you fold over that, touching the 1 inch line, and then fold over that, just like that. So that should give you the exact 1 inch that you measured off. When you fold, the first fold should touch the 1 inch line, and then you fold over that, and then you can now sew. Please secure with a pin when you're folding. Pin it all the way around before you sew, so it makes it easy for you. So now I'm sewing all the way around. Please, guys, don't forget, remove your pins as you're sewing so you don't break your needles. Just like that. Please, guys, try to sew as close to the fold as possible, and please use a tight stitch here. Use a tight stitch because this stitch is permanent and you're not going to be taking it out. So just sew that all the way around. So after sewing, I'm going to flip it over so you can see what it looks like, because the skirt is red. So now I'm quickly going to take it to my pressing iron just so I can iron it and show you guys what it looks like. As you can see guys, the skirt is looking so nice. I'm sorry that I lost the video recording of the red one, but I already made it and you can see it's so nice. This is the one we just made now, still looking very nice and perfect. So guys, please thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys on the next one.